Hope you are part of our meeting at comments time. If you like to step up and say something, and I'll come to that and discuss that in a few minutes. But welcome, and at this point in time, I am going to ask if Mr. Manager, you would have someone take care of our invocation.
Yes, sir. Chief Police Watson will be doing so.
All right, thank you.
Dear Lord God, thank you for letting us all be here today. Help us as we go about the people's business to conduct it with their best interest at heart and to uphold the oaths we took in all of our positions. Bless us and bless our community and lead us forward with wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next order of business, amendments to our agenda for this evening. I will ask if any of the council members want to add, subtract, or adjust the presented agenda for this evening.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we have two things, please. The first item, last month's agenda, we had an item in reference to annexation request. It should be item number 9, annexation request AX-2203. Our clerk had, in reviewing the minutes, we inadvertently left that off our agenda for this month's meeting. It was not discussed at our agenda Monday. We did follow up through the planning director to see if they were prepared to go this Thursday night. They were not given notification to be ready for this meeting and respectfully requested that we defer for next month. We would like to place that on the agenda for this evening and ask for a deferral on their behalf at the staff's recommendation as we left it off the agenda. We do have another item. I do not have the number for it. We'll have to give you the appropriate number and add the supporting signature page to it as well, called Supporting Operation Greenlight for Veterans. It'll be a resolution that will be added to the, what number, Madam Clerk? It'll be item number 10.
Richard? Do we have any other adjustments, additions, deletions? All right, with that then, I will call for the vote. The agenda with the two added item 9 and 10 that the town manager gave us. Do I have a motion that we adopt tonight's agenda as presented, again with the two additions?
I'll make that motion.
All right, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a first and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is set for tonight. Let's see. First of all, we'll move to the consent agenda, which are items that we discussed basically at our agenda briefing on Monday and passed to add to our consent agenda tonight in the interest of a little bit of brevity. These are kind of mundane, normally are just mundane items to add to the agenda or to approve, such as past minutes, meeting minutes, as well as in the case of line number 4, annexation request for the Berrien Springs Home for Children property that we, most of us heard about, the proposed development there. Will be a setting for a public hearing of September the 8th will be part of that consent agenda. And the approval of joint economic development agreement between the town of Troutman and C.R. Andre. So with that, that is part of the consent agenda that is passed. And if no one on the council wishes to pull anything from the consent agenda for a separate discussion, I will ask for a motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
Do I have a second?
And I'll say it.
Second. Have a first and second. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is adopted as presented in tonight's agenda. We now come to our section 3 of the agenda, public comments. The public is invited to address the town council with comments or concerns. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers are required to sign in at the podium and are required to adhere to town policy number 51 titled Policy Governing Comments from the Public at Town Meetings. Also, public comments can be received by mail at 400 Northeast Way Drive, Troutman, North Carolina, 28166. Email kdavis@troutmannc.gov or live stream chat of no more than 350 characters. Emails can be received up to 5 p.m. the day of the meeting. For live streaming, go to the link on the home page on the town website at www.troutmannc.gov. If there is anyone that would like to address the council this evening, if you would, please approach the podium and identify yourself and sign the form up there, please.
Good evening. My name is Mark Taylor. I've already signed in.
Okay.
I'm asking the council for a little assistance, if I may. I've tried to contact the mayor several times with no resolution, and I was trying to do it because of the optics. But apparently the water line that was put in along Murdoch Road to feed the Walmart distribution center was placed on private property. And so I would need for that to be rectified as soon as possible, please. So if they would reach out, I'd be more than happy to talk about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to let you know, the mayor had, his father passed away several days ago, and so he's been kind of, involved with that.
Sorry if
I'm
I-
not here. So I'm sure he was not ignoring you, intentionally. He was involved.
I've been trying since April, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, then, excuse me, go ahead.
All right.
Sign in.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, guys? Ma'am, my name's Johnny Edwards, and I live outside the city limits of Troutman. The decisions that you make in this room affect more than the folks that live inside the city limits of Troutman, although that's who you're elected to serve their best interests. I stood before you a couple months ago and talked to you about the coming retraction of the housing market. I think if you talk to anybody except maybe a real estate agent right now, you'll see that that's coming true. D.R. Horton at their conference or their earnings meeting, earnings call last week, has a 25% return rate on their homes. In other words, that's a 25% cancellation rate on their homes currently. Lennar has 17%. On my way up here today, I passed about 400 acres of red mud and red dirt. And I spoke to you last time about what's going to be done about that as this contraction gets larger. Personally, I hope it doesn't. I hope we all have brand new houses. But if you look at the evidence, that's what's happening. So what are we going to do about it? I know the town manager says that there are things in place to do that. Maybe it's not time yet to enact those. But this board has an opportunity that most people don't have, a second chance to get it right. You have a chance to put things in place to control development, to not clear cut every piece of property in this town. There are communities in this state that have strict tree cutting laws. There are places where if you want to cut a tree over 5 inches in diameter, you have to get a permit. To clear cut this property is not being a good steward of the earth, it's not being a good steward to our neighbors, and it's not being a good steward to the people who are moving into those developments. We hear often that we can't tell people what to do with their land. And believe me, I'm a person that the less rules we have, the better. But sometimes there's rules that are better for everybody. Is it speed limits? Maybe it's a house in a historic district that we can tell, what color can we paint this house? You can't paint it orange, but you can paint it gray. You know, maybe it's, we tell people you can't turn right on red. Or maybe it's tell people we can't build a 12-story building because we don't have a fire department that'll fight a 12-story fire. You got to keep it at 3 stories. So what I'm asking is to consider something that as you look at these acreage in Barium Springs, if that comes to fruition, that you put some controls on, that you lead, not follow. I've probably exceeded 3 minutes, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to talk to them? Okay. We'll move on then. Excuse me? Thank you, appreciate it. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, the first one is from Felina Wilson.
Alicia.
She lives at 403 West Avenue West on the corner of West and Downing, right at the four-way stop signs. The traffic I see just sitting on my porch is concerning and honestly frightening. West Avenue is a residential street in a neighborhood. There should not be 18-wheelers and dump trucks using this street as a common exit to Main Street. In addition, the speeding is out of control. The average driver does not respect the four-way and the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. My concern is the high risk for serious accident. It will be a collision or someone getting hit by a car. This is a residential road. Residents walk their dogs and families while cars zoom by speeding at least 40 to 50 miles per hour. People cut through because they cannot exit timely off Talley Street. If we're having this much traffic now, the risk of accidents will increase once new developments on Talley is completed. The development will potentially bring an additional 500-plus drivers that will follow suit by using West for their exit to Main Street. I am asking as a taxpayer, a lifelong resident of the Englewood community, that speed bumps be placed on West Avenue to control the speed and reduce the risk of accidents. Thank you to Troutman Police for trying to assist with the speed by placing the radar meter at the bottom of the hill. The drivers didn't even respect the meter either. I have also noticed some patrol cars on West Avenue. However, Troutman Police Department has limited officers to babysit West Avenue. The speed bumps can force drivers to slow down. I hope that the speed bumps will be considered for the safety of everyone. The second one is from Dan Hester. He says, Dear Mayor and Councilors, I write to you today to ask to reflect on the approval of the outrageous water assessment you have presented to me and many of your constituents by approving a fully loaded 2022-23 budget. I doubt you have heard from many of the citizens, but I can assure you the Troutman community is outraged. In fact, they're waking up from a long nap and don't like what they see. I respectfully ask one of my council members to make a motion to return the water fees assessed to the taxpayers in the current budget back to the realistic factor. For informational purposes, my water bill was $350. My neighbor to the right was $300 plus, and my neighbor to the left was over $400. These, councilors, are car payments rather than a water bill. This is insane. Please don't feed the propaganda of global warming and the extensive heat that is causing these outrageous water bills. I'm certain Mr. Wyatt will take exception to my comments, but I don't care. Perhaps he will remind me again. I live in the town for almost 2 years, and as a result, I don't understand how things work. I can assure Mr. Wyatt and this council I do know how things work. If only being in town for less than 2 years means I don't have a voice, just let me know.
Okay, I'll ask once again before I close out the comment period. Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. All right. Perhaps during the comment section from the council and the mayor, we can address this and some of these comments, or at the very least, we'll certainly take them into consideration. We thank the people, though, for stepping up and talking to us. All right, we're going to new business, which we're talking, in this case, would be Section 4. It'd be item 6, and I will turn the agenda over to Lynn Hare, our planning director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. The first item we have on our public hearing agenda this evening is a conditional zoning request. The applicant is Elena Dillard.
You might want to open the public hearing first.
Okay. The public hearing, in this case, this zoning case, is now open. Thank you, sir.
The applicant again is Elena Dillard via De La Casa Landscaping. The property in question that we're discussing this evening is located on the north side of Murdoch Road. It's just east of its intersection with Old Murdoch. It's currently zoned RS, which is suburban residential. They're requesting that this property be rezoned conditionally to heavy industrial. According to our Unified Development Ordinance, any new HI district requires conditional zoning. So that's why they're here this evening, or one of the reasons. The purpose is conditional zoning of the 5 acres to allow for the development of a 41,000 square foot structure to be used for commercial and warehousing space. On the overhead, you can see the property highlighted in red. You can see that it is located here on the screen. That's fine. Very near the Old Murdoch intersection. Again, this is our current land use map. You can see that the property is showing a future land use of residential. However, it is adjacent to other properties that are zoned for, excuse me, let's get this. There we go. For industrial use, heavy industrial across Murdoch, and just to the west of the property are properties that are shown for light industrial or business use. Michael, can you, the slides aren't turning? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, I apologize. Can you help me out? I'm not sure where we are. We're still on the first item. Okay, perfect, thank you. The current zoning of the property is RA, which is rural, agricultural rural, and it is, excuse me, again, adjacent properties are zoned industrial. So there's a little bit of a mixture of zoning classifications in this area. It's an area that's really transitioning. At one time, I think it was a more rural area, but there's a lot of businesses that have been built over the years in this area, and there are industrial uses adjacent to the property. This is a copy of the concept plan that the applicant submitted with their application. The building in question is located in the lower left corner. You can see that there will be 2 buildings, a larger one and then a smaller one to the rear. There's a detention pond shown on the site. I also want to point out that there's an access road that will be used to access this particular project, but it will also access the property to the rear of the site. We currently have a rezoning application in on that property as well. The applicant and owner on that piece is looking to do a small warehouse, a very similar type of project to the current application we're looking at. They're looking to do some flex space with office warehouse uses, so they're very compatible. So I just wanted to point out that you all will be seeing that one in the near future. It has not come before you all yet because it does require a TIA. This project, however, did not require a TIA based on the size of the property. Our ordinance currently requires TIAs for industrial projects or projects of this type that are over 150 square feet in size, so it did not meet that minimum threshold. This is also not in a watershed. However, BMPs will be required on the property due to its size, so there will be on-site stormwater detention facilities. The community meeting for this conditional zoning, which is a requirement of our conditional zoning process, was held on June the 22nd. We advertised that meeting, we sent out the notices, of course the signs were posted, but no one attended that meeting. This was heard by our planning board last month at their July 25th meeting. They wanted to make sure that if the adjacent property did not develop industrial, in other words, if for some reason that rezoning does not happen, that they would provide the buffer that would be required by our current ordinance. So that was a condition that they asked us to put on the request and present it to you as such, that that buffer on the eastern side of the property would be included. Staff is recommending approval of this request. It's adjacent to heavy industrial and light industrial uses that are both zoned and developed. So we feel like the use that's being requested is compatible with the area. Also, I want to point out that the Walmart distribution center is in very close proximity to the site. Our future land use map shows adjacent properties across the street from Murdoch is being developed as heavy industrial. I pointed that out. I think you all saw that on the map. And I want to also point out that our UDO does contain additional safeguards that will ensure the quality of development on the site. So that is staff's recommendation, as well as the planning board's. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. And the applicant is here this evening. So if Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if you all don't have any questions, I'll hand it over to the applicant at this time.
I have one, and I know this is looking into the crystal ball of the future. The down the road proposal possibly of developing behind this proposed rezoning property, was it also going to be kind of on the side too, coming around up to Murdoch Road, around the cement plant, concrete plant? Or is it just going to be behind?
The buffer? If
Yeah,
it's
well, no,
not
not the buffer, I'm speaking of the
the
land.
development,
The development proposed for a similar development behind this one.
It would be,
is
yes,
in
sir.
question tonight. Is it going to be kind of, because I know I was reading something that referenced the brick house there and possibly.
there is a house
So
currently.
will it be swinging around and coming up
Can we go back a few slides?
Yeah.
to the east side of that
There we
property
go.
as well?
Oops.
Yeah. This is what you're talking about, Mayor?
It's the parcels in,
Yeah, around, the back and around, coming, again, where the brick house is a reference, small brick house.
there we go.
That, I'm not sure if it's occupied or
The
not.
brick house, I
but,
believe, let's not get this.
the property along there, on the east side of the concrete plant.
The brick house sits in this area here. There's a
Okay.
brick house here.
Well, the property that's in question, which it
And-
says proposally coming, again, looking into the crystal ball. Will that
Correct.
be coming not only back of the proposed re-annexed property we're discussing tonight, around to the side of the concrete plant touching Murdoch Road? Will that all be part of what's
The
being
concrete plant
possibly
sits right
coming down the
here.
road, or just the back property?
The concrete plant sits on this parcel.
Okay,
So, I
Go
can
ahead.
actually show you, so the red brick house, basically in perspective would be right here.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, evidently I'm a little confused on that location then. I was thinking it was behind the concrete plant.
So, it's right,
The concrete plant sits right here on that gray parcel. And he stated the red brick house is actually on that property and
Yeah,
will be
okay,
removed.
yeah. Okay,
And then Onsrud is right here
right.
on
yeah,
that
yeah.
parcel.
Just as a point of clarification, just between this slide and the previous, like, this is basically referencing the surrounding RS, currently zoned RS. as
Correct.
one parcel. All it's
Um,
broken up into 8 on the others.
This is just the current zoning map. This is the site plan. This is what the owner of this property here, how he intends, this pointer's a little tricky, how he intends
So the
to,
property in question actually goes all the way to.
right now,
Okay.
this property is that property is one piece of property.
Thank you.
And that was just put on the site plan because we wanted to show, or the applicant wanted to show how the future development was going to happen and how the two fit together. 'Cause they intend to share that one entrance in that location there that you see on the site plan.
Is that red brick house occupied?
I think it's is it occupied?
it's
rented.
it's
It's
rented right
rented,
now.
okay.
Okay, go ahead for me, yes. If you want to go on with the developers, present their case.
I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure what to say.
I'll turn it over to the audience. Does anyone in the audience have something to say on the matter? Okay,
I just had a question.
that's good. Come toward him.
So I'm assuming it's a landscape business, right? Or,
No, it's gonna be like office / warehouse.
will chemicals be stored there?
No.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mayor, I would suggest, person who, the gentleman keeps answering questions, probably needs to be identified for the purpose of the record.
Okay. Johnny, you identify yourself, just,
Oh, sure.
well, no, I'm talking, the gentleman just spoke,
Oh,
if I'm understanding the time.
Both
the
do, but especially
applicant.
the guy who's answering.
All right, the other gentleman then.
Oh,
Your name,
welcome.
sir?
Peter Castatelli.
Would you please sign in, if you would, please? Okay, so do you have something you want to say?
Not really. I mean, most of what I was going to ask was just what the impact on the environment, what was going to be there. You know, is there something that we have to be concerned about? A lot of
Okay,
us has
I
kids.
apologize for interrupting you.
Yep.
Can you identify yourself
My
and
na- Yep, my
record
name
your
is-
name, please?
Sure. My name is Tom Lalicata. You want me to sign in?
Yeah,
is what you
please,
said?
if you
Sure.
would, go ahead.
Yeah, that's really the only question I have is environmentally what's going to be there. Not because I'm an environmentalist, it's because of water issues, children in the area, schools, things like that. What's the impact on the environment? From what I understand, we have enough of an issue with what Duke Energy has done and the coal ash that they've had. I know there's an impact on the water in the area. And I want to just, because it's heavy commercials, which you have it listed at, I just want to find out, or heavy industrial, wanted to find out if that was anything that we had to be concerned about, was all.
No, we actually, I know.
If you would, come to the podium, please, sir.
I know actually that it said Delicasa Landscaping. My business partner and I have a landscape company in Mooresville. Our shop is located on Mazeppa Road. This is just something that we are looking to do, just to basically to rent out, build a nice structure on the area that'll be, broken up into maybe 4 or 5 different little offices where you can rent an office with a warehouse in the back. We're not going to put any of the supplies or anything that we have at our landscape company on Mazeppa Road to that location. We're actually, if we do another business, it won't be anything related to landscaping in that area.
Will you have
History on that one at some point.
It's the worst business in the world to be in. Not just
Will you have restrictions on the people who are moving in about
Absolutely.
having anything environmental
Absolutely.
in their gas,
For sure. I mean, just with what Tony and I deal with having our own business, with the restrictions of having chemicals and fertilizer, we will not let any type of hazardous materials come to this location.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm against.
Okay,
people
excuse me,
having
if you don't mind, sir, come on up too,
Sure.
please. If you'd sit down and ask the questions. I apologize, but we.
Not a problem, it's
format we
procedure,
go
I get
by.
it. No, it's procedure. I'm not against any of that stuff. I'm a free market guy. That's not what it's about. I'm just, as far as what's coming into the area, just trying to make sure it's something that, I get it. There are other places in the area for industrial use that have these things that we need to produce products and things like that. If that's what we're talking about, yes, you got Walmart in the area. From what I understand, it's just the distribution center, so they're not really producing anything there. There's no waste, things like that. That's really mostly what I was concerned about. I could really care less if you build a skyscraper. It's just that environmentally, what our families here have to worry about. That's it.
Sure.
So.
Does anyone else in the audience have any comments? Okay, I will ask council members. Excuse me?
If you are done with the public hearing,
No, I was gonna leave it up for the part of the public hearing and then I'd close it out. Anyone have any questions, comments? Before
I
I
did one, but he had asked it over here, so you just answered it for me,
Yeah.
what the facility's actually be like. I was at the community meeting. Lynn and I were the only ones there, were no from the community, and I got a pretty good from both companies of what's going around there, so most of my questions were answered, and the one I did have, we always answered.
Jerry?
So you said you would have like four to five flex spaces? Do you have, I know it's all conceptual at this point. Do you have any idea of the square footage of each?
We were thinking, maybe roughly between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet per, depending on how we split it up. I mean, we kind of came up with the concept because we were looking for something like this for another business that we wanted to do, and we just couldn't find anything like this. That's how we kind of came up with the concept for it.
Yeah. I like the flex space idea. It's very versatile. You said so 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. That's probably from 1,500 office and the rest just open warehouse.
We used to have an e-commerce business, and that's exactly what we were looking for. We ended up having to rent an office space in Mooresville and then a separate location for a warehouse. So we were seeing like how nice it would have been if we had an office and then the warehouse directly behind where FedEx could just come pick up the packages. So the backside will be, garage doors and a loading rack. So hopefully, other companies will see stuff like that. It'll just be a great place to have, an office with the warehouse directly behind it instead of a complete separate location.
I agree with that point. My question is, it seems like though you're thing, right? But it seems like that you're, personally against any type of manufacturing, light industrial, light manufacturing, any type of, why heavy industrial? This may be a question just as much for a town planner. I don't know if just the structure itself requires that, but if that's something that you don't want, right? Because heavy industrial means all these things that everybody's concerned with can legally go there. So I'm just kind of, maybe I'm confused here, or is there another classification, another zoning classification that would meet what their specific desires are for this location, or does the structure itself require the HI?
The warehouse requires the HI. And with the conditional zoning, you could state what uses, if they agree to it, that you don't want to go into this site. It's very flexible.
Okay.
So, that's an option that you as council have.
That's why I said it was just as much for you as for them. Thank you for that. So, okay, sounds to me like that may be something that we would want to consider. Based on what's been stated by the public, based what they've even said their own wishes are. So I don't think we'll have a hard time getting that.
Do you have any, while we're on the discussion, well, let me get out of the public hearing, then we get into the weeds there. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you.
Yeah. All right, at this point, I will close the public hearing, and I will go into discussions among ourselves, as opposed to us interacting perhaps with the audience, and maybe touch on what you were speaking about, discussions before we take a vote on the matter. So do you have any ideas of what you would like to perhaps put into some sort of conditional zoning, restrictions, allowances?
I didn't come prepared with any, but just based on what I've heard tonight, it seems like both the public and the party involved, right, is interested in limiting the scopes of business that you put in there as far as what materials they're working with. So how we need to word that I'm not exactly sure about. But it seems like we do have a consensus on somewhat putting that into the conditions. But I'm not supposed to. But
You can continue the matter to the next time in order to think about it. If you decide you need to do that.
To think about other options for it. I was thinking, and my thinking could be all wrong, that heavy industrial was because of the warehouse, but thinking that big trucks had to come there. That's why I was thinking about, that was why it was heavy industrial.
It just, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, I apologize. But there's other property, in the area already zoned HI, where these uses that you all are speaking of could locate. So they're not, even if you limited it on this site, that doesn't mean that it's going to limit it from locating in this area already.
well, yeah, that we have to control.
Yeah. What I had in mind is, conditional zoning, HI, we can do what we want, even though it's HI, we can pare it down to what we have concerns about, and that's kind of where I was heading. If any of us have any, this is what we would, if we're gonna do pods, incubation pods, this type of thing, 10,000 feet or less, they're talking, what is the building, was it 45,000, something like that?
41,000.
How much?
41,000.
41,000, so, if we wanted to restrict in that way some, or, I don't want to get into micro details of
Right.
usage things, but,
But
something
also
that.
don't want to be too broad and then we
Exactly.
end up making a
Right,
mistake
right.
and put them in a place where they can
Right,
rent
right,
spaces
something
because
that you can sleep at
we-
night with, so to speak.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that's,
And if I may also inject some commentary here, right next door is a concrete plant. Next to that is a plant that's also having tractor and trailers come in. So if we are limiting commercial traffic, it's already there and literally right next door. So I'm not trying to interfere with your thought process and what you all are trying to do, but just in concept plans of what we're doing, commercial truck traffic is in that area. That was our projected growth in the total area of what we are doing, and we're trying to limit that from coming to downtown Troutman. So the commercial truck traffic is already in the area. I do respect in what you said, Councilman Oxshire, as far as maybe the type materials, if they're looking for storage and that, but when you look at some of the materials that polydrain, for example, it don't get more volatile than that, and that's literally 100 yards away. So while I do respect from the audience and what one of the citizens there had to say of what's going to be there, we have solar power fields and we have some very volatile chemicals next door there, so that stuff is already in the area. Now, as far as storage and those type things, I don't dare to pretend to know what I don't know.
Maybe we look at, if we want to do a condition zoning that is that, as they said, they're going to design the building to be for warehouse, office, retail kind of places out front. If they decide, we condition zone it, that they decide to change it to a manufacturing, that it come back to us. That's way, that they got the freedom, if somebody that sells it, the company, they just need to come back if they change it, so we are aware of it. And maybe that's all we need to do in a conditional zoning, we don't handcuff them, but we do
that's what I'm
say,
afraid of is.
but then we say, if you're gonna change it, you need to make and that's what we conditional zoning can say, come back to us if you change where you're at now, for your initial plans. And, I think that would meet that requirement without handcuffing them to not be in comparison with the rest of the companies around them. Plus, we got several other buildings fixed to go in around there.
Right.
So, I mean, that'd be my thought. If we want to put a conditional zoning, let's do that.
Would you be agreeable with that, gentlemen?
I mean, a small manufacturing company may want to lease out a unit, and we just don't want to put restrictions on it. They might want to just manufacture a little part, which it might be just an assembly. So I'm not sure if that would restrict that.
That's why I've had said thing past, maybe we need to add this because again, like, I mean, I'm familiar with businesses, like, what if you got somebody who wants to come in and make soap?
All right.
Do we keep them out?
I mean, is that-
Right, so if we try to get too nuanced with chemical storage and then next thing you know, okay, well, we're gonna have a table and here's I don't wanna go down that road. Right, so I think actually what Councilman Harris proposed, I think is.
That way you're, and we can even say, even a small manufacturer, but if you have hazardous chemicals, we won't know about it.
Right.
No, we're not just saying manufacturing.
We're just,
far
yeah,
off. We're
we're
saying,
ban, man.
no,
but
we
we're still
didn't.
dealing with a lot of hazardous chemicals
Yeah,
stored in
chemicals.
there, we'd like to know about it. I mean, I think it ought to come back to us and say that, people say, you let that go and you didn't know about it, we ought to at least know about it. And that's, obviously, I'm a chemical
Something to be dangerous and highly
manager,
offensive
but,
to the public
so I know
safety.
storage of chemicals is about that a lot.
Something that would be, dangerous and highly offensive to the public
Yeah.
safety and health. Gentlemen, would you be agreeable with that?
Yeah.
That says you can have that small manufacturer, but if it's, becomes like a lot of chemicals and you have a lot of methanol and other things stored in those areas, we need to know, the fire department need to know something like that.
That makes sense.
And we just say, come back to us if you're gonna change
And even like our shop in Mooresville, we are a landscape company, we do have chemicals
You
there.
will have
but
gaseline, you will have some
we have
certain amounts, but
gasoline,
we're
right.
talking about large amounts that
Right.
could be
Right, yeah, so
hazardous to the community.
we could say something that sounds good tonight, and then you
Right.
get down to the details, like, wait, we can't
Right.
even rent this to
Right.
him.
Yeah, I'm looking at general conditions on it, and say, let us know if you change.
Lynn, what's your, and Mr. Town Manager, your folks' perspective on this? What we're discussing here right now?
Conditioning that if let me just make sure I understand, if they decide to rent to someone who's going to store a large amount of chemicals, that they'll bring it back to you all for consideration? Is that what I understand?
Is that,
That would give them, allow them to do smaller manufacturing, but you start doing larger amounts of.
Yeah,
Right.
storage of hazardous.
right.
Yeah.
And, as we're saying here, we're not nitpicking. We're saying large amounts, not a gallon of gasoline for a lawnmower. We're talking something like that, part of our restrictions, conditional zoning allowances and restrictions. Is that, okay? And these gentlemen, and we'll put that, make sure that that's part of the motion, that they do agree to it and so forth, okay? Anything else? Anything else from staff before I call for, okay? Lynn, I know you're writing. Just want to make sure, anything from you before I do the vote?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, then, I will call for the vote. Could I have a motion regarding this, the rezoning of this property? In question?
I'm kind of wording a couple of things here.
Okay.
Okay, I want to make a motion, we approve ordinance 1922, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of the after described property from suburban residential to conditional zoning, heavy industrial, with one added conditional zoning that if leasing to someone storing or using larger amounts of chemicals, that we are notified at the town, where they come back to the town council, let us know.
Hazardous.
Yeah,
Hazardous, yes, hazardous.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
those chemicals, yeah.
Again,
Of course,
something,
I
if you
remember us
want to.
getting sued over something we didn't know was hazardous.
And Lynn, you can word this how you want, but something like I say,
Yep.
that's highly dangerous and offensive to the public health and safety.
And we call
That
it as
nature.
large amounts of chemicals, yeah. It's
Yeah.
storing or using large amounts of chemicals, hazardous chemicals.
Now, Gary, at what part of this do I go ahead and get the vote and then,
Just a second.
or do I do before I get the vote and ask for their agreement?
Need to ask for their agreement.
Right now?
Yes.
All right. Gentlemen, do you agree to this motion?
Yes, we do.
All right. Let the record show that then.
In a second.
We need a second.
Then I was going to ask
I'll
a second. All right, got a first, a second, and any further discussion?
Yes. There was also the condition that the planning board recommended about buffers.
Okay.
Now, that's just a recommendation. You all can choose to
Oh,
include
so
that or
we-
not.
Okay, I guess I thought we'd already approved that part of it before with them. Okay, then I guess I'd amend the motion to add the recommendation from the planning board on the buffer if the other facility wasn't built
Correct.
on the
If-
east side, right?
Correct.
Yeah, if it is not built, they'll put a buffer in. That was come from our planning and zoning, so those two conditions will be added.
Okay. And again, gentlemen, you agree to that as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let the record show. All right. Anything, any other concerns before we take a vote?
I think we're good.
That's
Do
good?
we need a second on that?
No, well,
We need to-
do I need to do it, again? Do I need to go ahead and get us, anything? Can I go ahead and take the vote now, since we put that, added that in, concerning the buffering?
He amended his motion, just need to make sure the second agrees.
Second agree?
And that they agree to the,
Okay,
Yes.
second agrees, and then that they agree to the condition, and then you can discuss it
all
vote.
right, I think we've done it, we've covered all that.
Yep.
And I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is passed.
You got all that, Lynn?
I got it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Consistency statement.
all right, we will move on to the next item of business.
Mark, might need to remind me of
Yeah,
that.
We
consistency
don't have to
statement.
read that consistency statement?
Thank you very much. We certainly do. Who would like to read the consistency statement on?
Thankful
I
Lynn
can read
does.
it.
Do what?
I got it.
Very good, ma'am. Proceed.
Rezoning to conditional zoning, heavy industrial is, I'm reading the wrong one.
No, you're reading Keep
It
on
says
reading through.
inconsistent, am I on the right one?
Yeah, keep reading it.
Inconsistent with the 2018 Troutman Strategic Plan's future land use map designation for the property as heavy industrial. However, the request is consistent with recent industrial development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property and is reasonable and in the public interest as it proposes to allow industrial development in areas of Troutman where it is appropriate.
All right. I have a second to that motion.
Second.
All right, first and second, any discussion before we take a vote? All right, call for the vote. All those in favor of the consistency statement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, ma'am, for that. All right, are we ready to move on to the next item of business? All right, we're item number 7, text amendment, TA 2203, and again, I will turn it over to Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. This is a request for a text amendment, and before we dive into this, I just wanted to make a statement. This is a text amendment to add a mixed-use district to our ordinance. While we have a mixed-use project that's on my desk, and we are going to be hearing at public hearing very soon, I want to point out text amendments apply to the entire town, not just to that project. So this is something that if you all decide is needed, it will be a tool that we have in our toolbox and that we can use for other projects going forward. So I just wanted to point that out. This is a request that was...
Excuse me? You may go ahead and open the public hearing at this point, all right? Public hearing is now open for this matter.
Again, the request is to create language that will be added to the UDO for mixed-use district. Just to give you all a little bit of background, the applicant did submit this. It was Barium LLC who submitted the application. They worked with staff, and we created languages that we felt like would work. We presented that to the planning board on June 27th. We had a discussion with them. We felt like this was something that needed to be discussed at a couple different meetings. They sent us back to the drawing board with some specific requests. They asked that we kept the language flexible. They felt like they wanted the ability for these types of projects for the council and the planning board to have some flexibility to work with the developers on how these things would look and how they could be in the best interest of our town. They also they wanted us to address open space. They wanted us to add a commercial percentage. This was something we had left out, but they wanted to make sure that all of these types of uses had a percentage of commercial in them, and that they would not just all be residential developments, but they would be true mixed use. They also asked that we increase buffers where these projects would be adjacent to existing residential. So we went back to work, we created some new language, and we presented that to the planning board on July 25th. At that meeting, we addressed these concerns, but they addressed another concern. They wanted to make sure that the language provided for adequate details to be provided to the boards in these types of applications. So they just wanted to really make sure that the applicants would be presenting really detailed information so that you all could make educated decisions. So one thing we did, I want to point out when you're making a text amendment of this type, there's a lot of changes. I know you saw there in the ordinance that we created. You have to go through the entire document and make sure that we're adding all of the changes to all of the different sections. So it's a lot of information, so I'm just going to try to walk you through that very briefly. One of the things is we had to create a definition for mixed use. One of the things we did there is we did do what the planning board requested, and we added 5% commercial as a requirement within that definition. We also went back and talked about commercial out parcels. That was something that originally we thought maybe was something we wanted not to have in these types of developments, because we see these more, a typical out parcel is the things you see down at Highway Exit 42, where you have maybe a Taco Bell or the Sheets. Those are true out parcels. So originally we felt like maybe in a mixed use development we did not want that type of out parcel, but we also felt like that they would be needed in areas like Exit 42 and Exit 45, because there is some land there that could develop for mixed use. So we added language that said that we would allow them in areas that were directly adjacent to these two interchanges, and we would limit those to 3, and the planning board was comfortable with that. There's a section in our ordinance called additional use standards, and it's Article 3. If you go to our table of uses, these are listed there by number, and they're basically things that if you have a specific use, there's things you have to do. Like, for instance, just as an example, there might be a car dealership, and they may have a special use standard that says you can't have outdoor speakers. You can't be out there making loud announcements and things like that. So that's just an example. So what we did is we went to the additional use standards, and we added an entire section just for mixed use. And in there, we talked about land use types and their location. So we talked about uses, we talked about the prescribed densities for each of these land uses. These would be required as part of the application. We also talked about how there would need to be a transportation plan included with the application that shows the proposed road network and its connectivity. This is in addition to any TAA that will be required. And then we also talked about a pedestrian plan. We want you all to be able to see that with this application, showing sidewalks, greenways, all pedestrian connections. We also wanted them to provide us with open space, like a map showing where their open space, where they're going to locate it, the size of it, what those proposed uses are. So basically what we're asking is that with a mixed-use project, that a master plan is being provided to you all that shows all of this information. So what you will see typically with these applications is more than one plan. Like right now with the conditional zoning, we just saw you had a concept plan. You'll have a series of maps. You'll have the concept plan. You'll have a road layout map. You'll have an open space map. You'll have a road connection map. And then we also would like to see a master sign plan for these. This is something that may not be presented with these applications up front because the builders and developers maybe haven't thought through that, but they will definitely need to bring that back to the council for approval. Since these are large projects, one of the things too is we are requiring these types of projects to be at least 50 acres. So with this type of thing, it's going to be an impact to the area they're in, and we just wanted to make sure, and planning board wanted to make sure that the information provided to the town was very detailed. So the development standards, we talked about parking here. We prefer that the majority of parking, especially for non-residential uses, be to the rear of the building. However, we are fine if it's 25% on the side. So there could be a small amount to the side, but typically, especially in the commercial areas, the majority of the parking will be behind the buildings. Now, of course, you may have a situation where you have buildings in the front and buildings in the rear, so there could be parking between the two. But any commercial building that faces a major roadway or a multifamily building, we would want the majority of that parking to be the rear of that building, to the rear of that building. And then project boundary buffers, this is something that the planning board felt strongly about. We increased that to 50 feet where adjacent to existing residential developments. So you may have 25 feet in other areas, but where there is an existing neighborhood, we are requiring a minimum of 50. But one thing about all of these mixed-use projects, they will be conditional zoning, so that the council has the ability to ask for an increase in that from the developer. So any of these things could be negotiated through the CZ process. One thing we thought would be nice to have too is a berm along major roadways, especially where residential developments are adjacent. So you have that feeling as you come into these projects where you don't have houses directly backing up to roads. Excuse me. Now your commercial projects, you'll have that frontage to make it feel more like a downtown area. But where residential is, we wanted to make sure that that was something that was being buffered from those main roadways, as well as the major roadways within projects.
May I stop you just
Yes.
for a second? Can you go back to the berm? I follow where, the residential development part of the project would be touching public roads. Now, if you get into the development, will those berms still be required, or is it just at the beginning of a particular residential section?
That's a very good question. Because when I first wrote it, I put major roadways, and then I had that same thought. I'm like, we don't want this to, because within this project, in these types of projects, when I think about like a Burkdale or a Baxter Village, you have some main roadways within those projects, and you have housing on those roadways. And in those, we would require the berm as well. Now, within a subdivision in a neighborhood, of course, we wouldn't require this, but we would just like to see these berms along any major roadway, whether it was outside or adjacent to the project, or inside is an internal connector roadway. So good question.
I'll trust your verbiage.
We can always tweak that. Uses and signs, we made no changes to these. We added it to the table that talks about what types of signs are allowed in these types of developments. But again, we are going to be requiring them to come back with a master sign plan that you all will approve. Tree save, our ordinance now, most residential developments only require 5% tree save. We increased it to 10% in the MU districts. I've heard lots of comments about tree save. We've talked many times that this is something we need to address in other areas of our ordinance as well. So we will be doing that, hopefully in the near future. But in the MU district, we would require 10% or request that you all consider requiring at least 10%. So that's just a basic overview of the MU language. The planning board did a really thorough job of reviewing this, giving us feedback. So we feel like what we're presenting to you this evening is hopefully very thorough. I also feel like that what will be presented in these mixed-use rezoning applications will be very thorough, so you all have a good amount of information. So this evening, staff is recommending approval of the text amendment as written. The planning board also is recommending approval. They did have one addition to the language. They wanted to see that under the applicability section, number 2, that we make sure that the site plans and concept plans that are submitted show minimum lot size, building height, as well as the residential lot layout. So that's the planning board's recommendation. That's the end of my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer those.
One question I had when I was going through here was, you had all the parking lots to the rear and side, like in the mixed-use area, commercial areas, the parking lots are to the side. But most of you see buildings are accessible from the front. Why are you putting them to the side?
Well, I think we were just recommending that 25% of parking could be to the side. And I think that's in your commercial areas and where you have maybe multifamily buildings. For instance, if you go to, I think we have some buildings down at exit 42. I mean, a typical fast food restaurant has the parking in the front of the building. And what we're trying to do is prevent that. So when you go through these types of developments, the buildings are pulled to the street and it starts to create more of a town center feel, like what we have on Wagner Street, where the building's like an old downtown. So you don't want your parking lot in the front. So we were recommending that we would allow these developers to do at least just a minimum of 25% of their overall parking on the side of the building. Does that answer your question?
The balance in the rear?
Correct.
I was just thinking, I went to Sheriff Ford, and I saw they had that residential and the commercial stuff, and of course, with a grocery store, having it right on the side would be a bit tied into that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like this area may not have one, but somebody else
Yeah.
in a mixed use might have that.
And that's a good question too. I think what you'd probably see with a grocery store, now if they want to put the grocery store out front, they're going to have to pull it to the street. But my guess is in a lot of these projects, what they'll do is they'll push the grocery store building to the back. So you'll have parking in the front, and then there'll be buildings in front of that that front the road. Correct.
Okay. When I saw that, I was thinking, I don't see that at the other facility I went through.
Right. And I think that 25% on the side may apply more to your smaller fast food restaurants or your convenience stores, those types of uses. But that's something that we would not want to see more than 25% of in that side yard, none in the front, just 25% on the side.
Now, you were saying as far as the grocery store, using that as an example of where a lot of people do, I guess, like the front, where it's easy to go in, pick up, and get back out. You're saying push it back now. You talking about behind other buildings, or I'm trying to follow your train of
And
thought
I'm
on
trying
that.
to think of an
It
example.
looked like
A
Lowe's.
good example would be
Well, Lowe's.
150, like the Target,
Yes.
where they've got, you've got those smaller, like suites that are actually up on the road that actually serve as a buffer between the
Okay.
parking lot and then
Right.
the big
Yeah.
anchor.
Yeah.
Good,
Is
good.
that-
Yes.
Or like Lowe's out here. You got a big lot
You're
in there.
exactly right. The Lowe's down here at exit 42 sits behind buildings that front the street.
Okay.
And there's parking in the front yard of those. And that, we would allow that.
Okay.
But on a major roadway, you would not want to see the parking in the front.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Felina? Oxon?
On the screen here, I do see, just based on a lot of the discussions we've had in some subcommittees and such, right? I do see minimum lot size. How does that fit in with our current, our current zones that we have? Is this language that's
This is totally,
consistent?
this is a conditional zoning, just like the HI district that we just heard. And our ordinance currently says anyone that wants to rezone a piece of property HI has to go through the conditional zoning process. This will be the exact same way. So that will be part of that CZ process. So we did not set a minimum so that you all have that flexibility to negotiate those minimum lot sizes with the developer.
Yes, I understand there's a lot of moving pieces with this zone.
Yeah.
You know, it's not clearly segmented.
But-
You know, so I can understand the, for lack of a better term, vagueness. Just minimum lot size. You got to, but not setting the actual. I understand that.
Because with a mixed-use project, with their T&Ds, these traditional neighborhood developments, you typically see a mixture of lot sizes, where you have some smaller lots, some larger lots, and that's the whole purpose of it, is that mixed use. So we didn't want to lock it into a specific lot size, so that you all had that flexibility to work with the developer through that process.
That's the beauty of the CZ part of it, really. It's,
Right.
it's, you know, it's, as you say, it is so complex, this. You know, what may work over in Barium, you get down south end of the town, it may be a different situation, but that conditional zoning, it gives both developer and us a chance for that flexibility needed.
And then my last point I wanted to bring up was on the tree saving, right? 10%, which I think is great. Would I guess probably a better place, I guess, to maybe address that may just be with definitions are but comparable to the lot size, right? It says say 10%, but like how could we, like as a council, will we be able to have any type of CZ powers, right, to determine that? Like I'm just thinking, oh, okay, well I'll just leave my property ringed in trees and then clear cut the rest of it. You know, oh, well that's my 10%, right? You know, I think that kind of goes against the spirit of what we're trying to do here. So is there any way that we can address that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we can do that through the MU district.
Right.
I think we need to handle that through the ordinance and the grading requirements, what we do and don't allow grading. But with the 10%, you know, I think what we're really looking for is tree stands. We're wanting them to show us that there's 10% of tree stands on that site that they're saving. You know, that there's substantial forest, for lack of a better word, that they are going to save. And they'll have to show us that when they bring in their plans for plan review, you know, whether that's through tree surveys or, you know, aerial photographs and showing us, hey, we're going to save this area of trees. But
So we would still have the authority for them to show good faith, that they're not putting it all, as Jerry said,
Yeah.
one spot. That, you know, again, depending on the situation, a particular project, they're spreading them out so that you have kind of a consistent array or spreading out of trees, as
yes,
opposed
sir.
to all red dirt, and then here's this spot with 10% trees.
Yes, sir, you can, and you have the ability to, if, you know, negotiate that percentage with the developer as well. I mean, if they agree to save 20%, you can add, you know, that's
Oh, yeah,
something.
sure.
So that's also something that you have the ability to do.
So this mixed use is kind of to avoid what we did with Smith Village and Rocky Creek, where we had to do 2 or 3 rezonings because one, we've got a commercial, we got a civic, we got
Correct.
the other mixed use housing. So it puts it all into one, and it manages as one zoning.
And it makes it more cohesive, because when you start breaking it up like that, you have different standards in HB than you would in, you know, RS. And so it gets that cohesive, you kind of lose that cohesiveness. So this is going to create a zoning classification that will allow us to have a cohesive project.
And it'll all be conditionally zoned.
Yes.
Anything else before I call for the vote? Or call for the motion, rather?
I think you gotta ask.
And then go out to public hearing, yes.
Public comment.
All right, public comment? I thought I'd already done that. Thank you, Gary, for catching that. I thought I'd already done it. Public comment, please, regarding this project. Or not this project, excuse me, regarding this addition to our UDO for a mixed-use category. Okay. All right, in this case, here to go out and close it, all right? I close the public hearing, and I once again ask for any further discussion from the council or from staff even.
I'd just like to make sure, whenever we do make a motion, we include the planning board recommendation under conditional zoning requests that they had.
Part of the motion, yes.
As part of the
Yes,
motion.
sir. Okay.
But, no, we've been through several meetings of this, and it does make sense what we're trying to do to have this zoning versus
Sure.
3 different zonings like we went through before.
It makes
then
sense. Again,
and
you know,
you follow the whole thing, but developing that one block, this is what you're working with us.
again, using your example a while ago of Smith Village and Rocky Creek, I mean, a little bit of a hodgepodge, it was unnecessary. We would not have had to tackle.
And we can have others coming up
Mixed
down the
use.
road, it's going to, would be better to have this.
Right.
Sure. We're growing and we need it. It's essential, we need to add it. Okay. Anything else from staff before I proceed to ask for a motion?
No, sir.
All right, with that then, I will ask for a motion regarding the addition of this mixed-use category to our UDO.
I'll make a motion, we adopt ordinance 2022, titled an ordinance amending the town of Troutman Unified Development Ordinance to include language creating a mixed-use zoning district and include in it the planning board recommendation of adding the following language under applicability number 2, minimum lot size, building height, and residential lot layout.
All right, did put a part of that, including, I guess, would we need to put in the motion, including the planning and zoning? Or is that already a part of the, what we're voting on, or we'll be voting on?
I think it's a good idea to include it.
I mean, just a recommendation.
You're talking about-
We need-
Yeah.
They did.
Okay.
You're
So
talking about
that's part of the
recommendation?
motion. So
Yes, that's part of the motion.
okay, all right, I'm sorry, I was looking at this too. All right, if everything, all right, call for a second.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Jerry. You got it, Jerry.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first, a second. Any discussion before I call for the vote? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed and the category is now added as part of our UDO.
Consistency statement.
Excuse me?
Consistency statement.
No, exactly.
You read it again?
And all right, who wants to do that? Who wants to do that?
I guess I'm the reader tonight. All right. I make a motion regarding consistency of this action, that this text amendment is consistent with the 2018 Strategic Plan and Unified Development Ordinance, as it would provide for the development of mixed-use projects, promoting the desired goal of improved walkability and encouraging enhancing the aesthetics of town. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
All right. Okay, we've heard this consistent statement. Do have a second to Ms. Harris's motion?
I'll second.
All right, we have first and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor of the consistency statement as read, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is passed for the consistency statement. All right, we will move to item number 8. Text amendment, Unified Development Ordinance regarding addition of language authorizing the town to enter into development agreements. And Lynn, I will turn it over to you once again.
Thank you. This again is a text amendment, and what we are talking about is the need to just to add language to our ordinance that allows us to enter into development agreements is defined by North Carolina General Statute 160D 1001.
Excuse me, if you'd open the public hearing.
Okay. I will now open the public hearing on this, this matter, and Lynn, please continue.
There we go. Whoops. Got ahead of myself. So just to kind of let everyone know what a development agreement is, it's a voluntary contract between a local municipality and a property owner. It contains the obligation of both parties and lays out the various standards and conditions that will control the development of the subject property. Again, it can include things like utility agreements. Extends vested rights, which it typically does. It can talk about the phasing of developments. It's basically a tool that the state has approved and allows towns to use. So the reason I'm here, we're requesting this evening, is this was left out of our ordinance. I believe the town did a 160D update probably 2 years ago, and this language was not included. So we are just asking that the 160D 1001 language be added to the ordinance. We did not create this as staff. We did not add anything to it. So it's just what the state allows. So we are recommending approval of this, and the planning board is also.
Okay. Do you have any comments from the public regarding this matter? Okay. And since we're not dealing with any developers here, I don't need to call for them to comment. So with that, I will close the public hearing and ask for comments from council members.
So if I understood from Monday night, this is really to correct something that was missing out of our UDO.
Yes, sir.
That we didn't have, and we need to get it in here based on 160D.
That's correct. It's basically language that says this is how you enter into a development agreement. There's advertisements that have to occur. There's public hearings, ask of the planning board, and it outlines all of that information. And that it is currently missing. That's correct.
Answer my question.
Good. All right, anything further from staff before we take a vote?
No, sir.
All right, based on that then, I will ask for a motion in terms of passing this case number TA 2204, development agreements. Do I have a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2122, title an ordinance amending the Town of Troutman Unified Development Ordinance to include language allowing the town to enter into development agreements per NCGS 160D-1001.
All right, I have a motion that's on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed, and we will now do the consistency statement. Please don't everybody at one time.
I make a motion regarding consistency of this action, that this text amendment is consistent with the 2018 strategic plan and the Unified Development Ordinance as it would provide consistent regulation of development agreements for developments over 50 acres. The amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Not to nitpick, but it's not consistent with our current UDI, right? It's consistent with North Carolina general statutes, and that's what we're trying to. I know nitpicking here, but do we need to make that distinction? No. Fair enough.
Okay. I'm looking two different directions, and I'm not getting any no shakes, so we're good to go, evidently. All right. Okay, I have a first and second. Discussion. Okay, no more discussion, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the consistent statement just read, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. All righty, we will move on to item number 9. I will ask if council would like to defer the annexation request 22-03, Touche LLP Townhomes down 681, I believe 681 Southeast Way. If they'd be amenable to allowing us to defer that discussion and public hearing for another month, which would carry us over into September's meeting. Could I have a motion to that effect, if you so agree?
I make a motion that we defer Oh, shoot, I don't have the rest of the numbers. 2203
Yes, AX 2203.
to next month. I make a motion that we defer the annexation request 2203 to next month.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, a first and a second, any discussion? No discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The item is carried over until September's meeting. All right, number 10 item, I will defer to our town manager concerning a resolution.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council. I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity as a veteran of the United States Marine Corps to read the resolution, and you all taking the opportunity to consider the resolution on behalf of all the veterans that have served the United States in the various branches of the armed forces. I would like to also thank Commissioner Gene Halp of the Iredell County Commissioners. He is serving District 12 as the director, which oversees 8 counties: Cabarrus County, Gaston County, Iredell County, Lincoln County, Rowan County, Stanley County, Union County, and Mecklenburg County. They have came up with this. It's called Supporting Operation Greenlight for Veterans. And if I may read the resolution in its entirety. It says, whereas the residents of the town of Troutman, Iredell County, North Carolina, have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and the way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas the town of Troutman seeks to honor these individuals who have paid the high price for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas the veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, veterans of foreign wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually. And whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. And whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. And whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at a high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. And whereas the National Association of Counties Municipal Governments encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas the town of Troutman appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted, therefore be it resolved with the designation as a green light for veteran community, the town of Troutman hereby declares from October through Veterans Day, November 11, 2022, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifice of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service. Therefore, be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, the town of Troutman encourages its citizens and patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in a window of their place of business or residence.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Well read. I think we all certainly concur with that. It's not for our military and the veterans that a result of having the military that it is incumbent upon us to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, as well as in other ways, always in our hearts, because they're the only line of protection between us and our freedoms and the loss of those freedoms. So I certainly concur, and this being a resolution, I am going to ask the council to take a vote on it if that's appropriate. So I would ask for a motion that we accept this resolution with graciousness towards our military and our veterans, and certainly keep them 365 days a year in our hearts and our minds. I'll call for that motion.
As a proud veteran, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this resolution supporting Operation Greenlight for veterans.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Call for the vote then. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is carried with our thanks to our military and our veterans very much. Thank you, sir.
I will reach out to our friend Joe McLaughlin at Lowe's and make sure they have plenty of green lights in stock.
Good idea. Good idea.
Joe
All right.
McFarland, if I call him a different name, he'll shoot me.
Okay. All right. Well, I move on to item number 7. At this time, we can allow some time for our town council members as well as myself to make any comments, and then we'll from there go with the town manager and staff. So I'll start off with town council members. Anything you would like to say at this time?
I'll start off. Kids are going back to school in a couple of weeks. Some kids have already gone back to school. We just wish them well, a good school year, and to all the teachers, my husband included, who is a teacher in Idaho Statesville Schools. I just hope they have a great and successful school year. I also wanted to just mention National Night Out, how I enjoyed seeing so many citizens at that event and how it's such a great event. And thank you all for coming out, and thank you to our chief of police and everyone who helped to put that event on. It's a great event. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I would just like to again remind people that our police chief and his police officers started this big thing with the community with the sandlot ball, and they got another game coming up next week. This Saturday night. And I'd encourage people to come out and join them and help, because one thing, as I brought up Monday night, is things have changed. You know, we've had shootings and death threats, and it's starting to get closer to home that we need to build in our community. And anything we can do to build it, we appreciate what our police do. The other thing, because I keep hearing it over and over, and we haven't done that yet, and we've talked about it in the land use meetings, that I would ask staff to consider developing the amendment for the definition of open space, and that we've talked about, where we quit spending all this unused property on these developments, and bring it back to council. And one on the clear cutting, we had talked about limiting how much they can, you know, as they develop, they just can't clear cut the whole area and then build, because now we got issues that, as you brought up, sir, after that, if they quit selling, they go bankrupt or whatever, we got a whole lot of dust out there. So just slow them down a little bit on the clear cut. We had talked about that once before. I'm not sure what the wording is, but there's a couple of things we've talked about we haven't seen yet. But as we get ready, the land use map completes, it's probably getting close to time to start thinking about that text amendments, or to be added to UDO, whichever way it goes.
Then let me, so on the subject, are the ways that we can legally do that, to put it in to where the town and the citizens around, and whether it's inside or outside, are somehow, some way protected from a dust bowl, if you will, as George just said, should the company go belly up or lose interest and just leave it there, you know, fallow for years. Is there something we can do to help protect?
And well, there's definitely things we can do from an ordinance amendment standpoint to preserve trees going forward. The sites that have been cleared, if you know, just as an example, if that were to happen, we do have things in our ordinance, and Iredell County erosion control, you know, will require these sites to be, you know, the soil to be seeded or that type of thing. But there, I'm just trying to think if there's anything that if they today, that if something happened, If that developer went bankrupt, for instance, what would be our recourse there in terms of trees? We have bonds that allow us to go in and put roads in. We have bonds that allow us to put in all kinds of infrastructure. But that is something that, the Iredell County Erosion Control would have control over the actual soil and the erosion there. I guess we could look at adding some things to our ordinance that maybe with those bonds, we would be requiring them to do, soil stabilization and that type of thing with that bond. That's an option. We could think about that. I'd have to think about it a little bit, but, just see what other towns are doing and what other options might be that we aren't currently doing. But we can definitely think about that and think through it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if you, and maybe, a month or two, when you have had time to think about it and check, if you could let us know something, report back to us, if you would, please.
We may need a letter from you all as a council also. There's one property in particular, I can tell you, we have communicated with the council, with the county on numerous times that they have not, the erosion control, they have not followed through with their part and making sure that the landowner has put grass on it. And we have numerous times reported the individual has not putting grass or something in place. But they have taken great liberties in telling them that we are the ones that are complaining. So I've got some heartburn with that.
I'd be glad anytime you want us to sign on a letter or you word it, we'll sign it.
I really don't mind that they tell them we're complaining. I would like for them to do their job and make sure that the grass is planted and or the individual's fined. That's that simple.
Yeah, that wouldn't be, we still couldn't have that under our control to find them. It belongs to the county, right?
That's correct.
It's not, I thought I understood.
If you need something.
We have
Go
talked
ahead.
about it several times.
No, I was just gonna say, if you need something from us, let us know to, get somebody's attention or some people's attention up on the county level, if they're neglecting their job, if you will, or not neglecting, but they're just not doing it efficiently as they should.
We have just recently discussed the fact that we're going to start following it up with how many times it's been documented that we have requested that they do their job and follow it up in writing.
Is anybody else?
I don't have a whole lot. Nothing more to add since Monday. Just like Councilwoman Harris said, National Night Out was an absolute blast. For those that didn't come, I highly recommend attending the next one. It was a fabulous event. So many people, great time with the kids. The police department's on a roll. National Night Out was great. Even with the negative things that have sprouted up in our community with regards to crime, I can definitely tell you I am very, very pleased with the response that our PD and our staff in general have taken. Incredibly proactive, incredibly engaged. And so I, for one, am sleeping well at night, knowing who's on the job. And I would just like to say thanks, staff, and thank both the chief and the entire force for what you guys are doing, what you men and women are doing. And yeah, I'm just very, very pleased. So thank you. That's all I've got.
Well, as usual, I concur with what's been said, so I won't repeat. I want to thank all of you for your comments, and once again, Mr. Manager, need our help in erosion control, whatever, difficulties. You need, whatever we need to sign or help you with, talk to somebody, just please let us know. I understand it's difficult. I think we've all been there where we've been promised things, they don't happen, and you get frustrated after a while, and when you've got town citizens that are now, having to come to you and complain, and you're doing the best you can, and people are not responding at the county level when it's their jurisdiction and obligation to do so, it can be very frustrating. So, again, whatever help you need. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
I'll go to our clerk first. She's good, Chief. Want this one or?
I'll just go since I've been kicked off the table.
Hey, we had an empty seat up here.
During the month of July, Troutman Police Department responded to 264 calls for service. Officers completed 37 incident investigation reports and 11 crash reports. Officers made 129 traffic stops, locating 2 narcotics violations and 1 DWI. We have received complaints prior to tonight about speeding on West Avenue, and we did put out a radar trailer to do a speed survey. During the time it was out there, it clocked 8,164 vehicles on West Avenue. 77% of those clocked were exceeding the speed limit of 25 miles per hour. The highest speed was 60 miles per hour. Since that, we got those results of that survey finished. Officers have begun doing focused traffic enforcement on West Avenue. It started on Tuesday. And we're also going to do education through social media, a newsletter, and some signage that we're developing to put up in areas. West Avenue will be the first. Then, as we solve the problems through enforcement education, we'll move to another area where we're having problems. The first Sandlot event did take place on July 23rd, and we had a good turnout. There was about 40 people, counting kids and parents, that showed up, and 20 of them played. Our next event will take place this Saturday, the 13th. It starts at 6 o'clock at the baseball fields, and it ends at around just a little before dark. And we'd love everybody to come out and play. Last time we had just one field going, but we have the ability to have games going on both fields. So, but to the resident that did speak up about the, write in about the speeding issue, we are working on doing what we can. I know the past 2 days, officers have been out and stopped a significant number of vehicles. On Wednesday, the speeds that they were clocking cars at were very high. Today, the speeds were coming down. Some people are starting to take notice and know that officers are out there working it. But we'd like to, be able to gain compliance without having to write people tickets. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we continue to see rezoning applications being submitted. I know there's talks of economic downturn. We are not experiencing it yet in the planning. I can't talk, I'm sorry. The Troutman Planning Department, all that talking I did before. But we've got several rezonings that are coming before you. You all are very aware of the Berrien project. We've got a community meeting scheduled for that. It's the second one. It'll be on Thursday evening, the 18th. The applicant has already met all of their legal requirements for their community meetings. This is just an additional one that they have agreed to do, just so the community has ample opportunity to come in and ask them questions and get familiar with the project. It will go to Planning Board on the 22nd of this month, and it will be coming before you all on the 8th of September for the public hearing. So just wanted to give you a heads up about those dates. We have received a development agreement for this project. That's something I don't think we've done very often in Troutman. So I'm working with Gary on that and the manager. That may not come at the same time as the conditional zoning, but it doesn't have to, but it will come shortly after. We will make sure that gets done. We also had a community meeting on Tuesday night for a project called Shin Farms. It's at Weathers Creek and Houston Road. It's a very large single-family development, around 650 lots. I can't remember the total acreage, but it's a large project. There was a very good turnout at that meeting. The room was full, so it went well. A lot of good questions asked. And also Perth Road, there's a 100-plus unit, what they're calling a single-family attached project. It's a multifamily, sort of a one-story, three units in a building kind of apartment complex geared towards seniors. That's at Perth Road and State Farm. That will be coming, State Park. That will be coming to you all in the next couple months as well. So those are the major ones that we've seen. But I think in total we have about 8 rezoning applications in our office right now. So we're very busy. Code enforcement, I've got our code enforcement officer focusing on the intersection down here at Old Mountain and 21, just because of the number of complaints we've received there. He's focusing on weekly going out there, making sure that hopefully we can get some of those issues addressed. And he's going to be doing a weekly report for us and for myself and the manager, so that we're up to date on what's happening there. So that's a few of the things going on in planning and zoning. But
I hate that Councilman Now's not here, because I know he would have been very happy to hear that.
we had a meeting last
Okay, good.
For finance, not too much new stuff going on right now, just still working on a software transition. So if anybody's used the new portal, MyGovHub, that's up and running. Our automated phone system seems to be working pretty well. There's still some bugs we're working out with our third party there, but we're working on that. So we're trying to get that word out as many places as possible. But if anybody has any questions on that, they can just call Town Hall. Kimberly and Erica are doing a fantastic job up front. They've both been here. Kimberly almost 2 months now, and Erica's been here over a month. So make sure to stop in, tell them hey, and give them a smile and a wave, and you'll get it back. But we've got our fiscal year 22 audit coming up in September. So we're, wide open on closing that year end out, and it's always fun stuff having audits. Now I get to see this side of it. I used to be the one coming in, bothering everybody. Now I get to be the one that's bothered. So I guess it's payback, but that's about it.
Parks and Recreation. We will continue with Farmers Market on Tuesday evenings from now through the last of September. The 28th, I believe, is the last market we'll have. Registration is open for our annual Wicked Fast 5K, October 15th at 6 p.m. at the Downtown Depot. You'll see the information on the board. You've seen maybe some of the ads pop up through Facebook. Banners will go up shortly. Trails and treats, any vendors, which would be businesses or organizations in the community who are interested in being a vendor, passing out candy or promotional items for your organization along our paved trail within the park. If you're interested in participating, contact us here at Town Hall. We'll add you to the list. This is a safe option for trick-or-treating in our community from 4 to 6 on Halloween Day. Like I said, it's on the paved trail within the park. So we're happy to be able to do this again since COVID. It's been a few years since we've been able to do this. I guess 2019 was the last time we were able to host this event. So we're excited to be able to do this again. So just contact us if you're interested in participating. And Wednesday evening, the 17th, this upcoming Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., we're excited to be hosting the Community Pep Rally for South Iredell High School. Everyone is invited to come meet members of the marching band, cheerleaders, coaches, and players from all sports teams to help celebrate and kick off the fall sports season and to get ready for the first home varsity football game in Viking Valley on Friday night at 7:30 Friday night, but the pep rally is at 6:30 on Wednesday night. So come join us Wednesday night here in our park. So hope you'll join us for that. So those are just a couple things. Youth sports are cranking back up for the fall, and we will be practicing in our park in full swing in the park the next few weeks. Brent's doing an excellent job getting the fields groomed and mowed and prepared, so he's very busy with that. But so that's all we got pretty much right now in Parks and Rec.
Now, this is y'all's favorite time. You've been waiting all night for the Public Works report. So we're finishing up our lead and copper sampling program. We're ahead of that timeline with a deadline of October 1st. We completed the annual collection system status report and received state approval for that. Completed all monthly state compliance reports. Also received state approval for those. The order has been placed on the new jet vac combination truck. We're looking for a no later than January delivery date. So we're excited to get that and start playing in the sewer a little bit like we're supposed to be doing. So overall, we're doing our best to keep the sewer flowing in the right direction, the water clean and healthy, and along with Parks and Rec, the grass short. So that's where we're at with Public Works.
Well done.
So it sounds like everything went good with get out of one contract to the new one for the jetter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we're getting the one that sees it will be the better one.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yep.
I appreciate all the department directors and their reports, and they have been working hard as you can tell by the brief reports that they give. As always, just remind you all, if you have any questions, feel free to send them out. We don't want to wait just to the monthly meeting for them to address any questions or concerns you all or any of the citizens have. Feel free to send them to us, and we will answer them promptly. We do get questions and ask a lot. They're not always waiting till the meetings, and that's fine. We want to address them as they come in. A couple of the things that have been social media and or directly to us, I had to laugh this past Saturday when I went to a Ruritan breakfast at V Point Ruritan up in Harmony community. Drove by Cool Springs Ruritan to get up there, and one of the comments that's been rampant about here is the smells, and when they start, we have a lot of folks that are from different parts of the country and world that have never smelt natural smells that we have here from the farmers that uses natural fertilizer. But as I was going up to Old Moxville Road, there's a lot of poultry houses up there, and they use fertilizer for grass fescue and all that, so you smell the poultry natural fertilizer. And I was just laughing when I seen all the comments that was on social media. But Adam hates them because they tell him we got sewer backups everywhere when they're here, but it's not. It's animals that people use as natural fertilizer when they put them on the fields around here. But people's convinced somehow that Adam and his crew didn't do something in the waste system correctly, and we have these terrible things that's going on. But
This is why you need the new truck.
that's it. That's it. That's it. But it's as I saw the dairy farms up there, I chuckled for a couple miles. But it's natural that's what happens when people want to have different grass growing green, and that's what happened up there. But the breakfast was good at V Point Ruritan, and the ladies up there was laughing when I explained our social media that was happening here. People hadn't smelled that before. But also, as we talk about growth and what that is, and as Lynn stated, we have 8 projects that are coming up in the next few months. I just want to remind some of the council members here that do not remember too many years ago, it was not too long that we had 1 or 2 projects an entire year. And so when we have people that are trying to convince you and their neighbors, oh, it's going to stop here, it's not going to grow, and we need to be prepared for that. That's not what the experts are saying. Just because you see California that says it stopped there, this is not California. When you look at certain parts of North Carolina and they say they're going backwards, this is not those parts of North Carolina. As I mentioned, Commissioner Gene Haupt earlier, in their District 12 discussions, it may interest you all to know that 5 of those 8 counties are projected to have up to 67% growth in the next 20 years. 5 of the 8 counties are expected to grow anywhere from 39 to 67%. Iredell County is projected to have 50% growth in the next 20 years. That don't sound to me like the experts have us stopping growth. The town of Troutman is expected to have the most growth of any municipality in Iredell County. Now, all that says to us as experts in growth and community leaders that we need to continue planning and proper growth, and they have suggested strongly and are telling all the leaders in government that we need to focus and keep our focus on industrial and commercial growth, that is what will pay for our future obligations, and we need to make sure that that is balanced growth more than ever over residential, because that's what pays for your long-term projects and growth. That's what we have been planning for in the last few years. I would like to thank again you all as elected officials as we still transition. We have one department director position that we're still trying to fill. It should be handled pretty soon. And that's all that I have, unless you all have any specific questions of me.
Anyone? Sir, it seems like you get off light this time.
Good. I was gonna bring up fertilizer every meeting, so, you know.
There's different forms of it. That one was a good
I
one.
plan on learning a lot of it next
Well,
week.
ironically, where I grew up in North Statesville, the city limits was right my backyard, and right across the city limits there was a creek. A few feet beyond that was a farm. Now, I'm talking back in the 50s and 60s. Obviously, environmental rules are a little bit more strict now, but every spring, and you know, that's back, air conditioning was just beginning to come in, so you would generally open your doors, have your window box fans, you know, that's when you shut them off. But I grew up those smells, so it brings back a little nostalgia, even though that sounds very awkward and weird to say that. That brings back nostalgia, talking about those weird smells, okay? All right, folks, with that, I will call for an adjournment.
Okay, in memory and honor of our mayor's father, Apostle T. Ross Young, I make a motion we adjourn.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? We are in adjournment.